What's up guys, thanks for checking out the video today. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, take a moment and press the subscribe button and hit that bell to make sure that you receive notification whenever I put up new videos. As well, check me out on Instagram at Wrench Rampage. Alright, so today I'm going to be working on an Evo 6 that I have in my shop, right over here. And what today's project is going to be, well, probably it's going to take me a couple days because it's going to be some slightly detailed work. And when I'm cutting into an Evo to put body parts on, I want to take my time and sort of measure 3 times, cut once, those sorts of things. So today I'm going to be starting on installing the FEAST-POWER flares that are available through FEAST Japan. And the flares are a plus 20 mil add-on to the rear. So so here you can see them. They are available in 3 different finishes. So they all look like this when they're complete, but what the manufacturing process is there's an FRP, there's a lightened FRP, and there's a carbon fiber. Now, the carbon fiber does not show the weave. It is strictly for making a lightened part. So this is the rear flare. Well, by the rear flare, I mean the rear piece of the rear flare. So there's 2 pieces. There's one on the quarter panel side. There's one on the door side. So you can see sort of how these fit up. They have a pretty slick split that goes around the bumper. Let's get that a little bit more solid there. Okay, they do fit very tight. Now, FEAST does have a small gap at the top, and that's the provision for those rubber insulators to have like a stock looking install. So that's normal. You could probably get away with not having the insulators, but there is the provision there. There is a consistent gap along the top there. And now the way these flares work is, as far as FEAST is concerned, what this allows for is a 10-inch wide wheel. On their site they reference 17 by 10 plus 18 fit, which is kind of a classic GTR fitment. Now, what they're saying is that you can accommodate that wheel with a 255 series tire on the back. As well, FEAST does sell matching front FRP, lightened FRP, and carbon front fenders, also plus 20 mil. And this allows you to do a square setup where you have 17 by 10 plus 18 and a 255 tire on all corners. Now, I think you can probably go wider than a 255, but I think they're just referencing that for safety's sake. That will probably easily fit on a plus 20 setup. Now, to sort of make these fit a little bit better, we're gonna have to modify them. And the reason being is that there is a lot of material here on the fender that can be removed to allow for an even bigger tire. Because what this is doing is, on the install here, it's extending the flare out. However, it's not really allowing more inside space. So the thing to do to allow for that would be to trim. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll do it step by step together because we're a team. All right, let's start. Okay, so I'm still in the planning stages of where to cut, and this is something that I want to take some time at. So I'll show you some of my reasoning here. There are some people online that do the conversion here a little bit different than I do, but my plan would be to take as little away as possible. You don't need to, I don't want to cut too much away. I'm cognizant that this is taking away from some of the structure of the vehicle, so I don't want to go too crazy. It's just take away the stuff that's necessary for wheel clearance. So the first thing that you should start with is taking a look at the fastening point of the rear bumper. Now, this part here has to be removed. This is also where the front of the bumper attaches. Now, there is one more fastening point right here behind the bumper, which you can access through the trunk. There's a screw that goes into a bracket that's right here. But when you move to the front of the bumper, this is the main fastening point, which is taking the front of the bumper and attaching it to the chassis. Now, to cut this back properly so that you have maximum wheel clearance, you have to remove this fastening point. So I kind of marked out basically where I would be cutting, and what it will be is taking off this lip, so going right until it's just a flat piece of metal sticking out like that. This will all be treated so that it won't rust. But as you remove this, you have to cut off this fastening point and then continue down the bumper and cut a chunk out of the bumper. And that's to allow as much clearance as possible on the wheel well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm adding a bracket here to hold the bumper. Now, this is just a piece of steel, and I'm going to use some nutserts to attach it to the body, and then likely some a nut and a bolt and a nut to attach this to the bumper. And now this is going to take over this fastening point. Okay, now when you look at the flare, I basically marked out where I'm going to cut the flare. Okay, so I'm going to cut it back there. I'm going to cut the lip down. Okay, now this is going to go on like this, and it's going to cover that bracket that's there now. So trim all of that off right to here. Now, I like keeping this flat spot because all this is doing is this is continuing where the wheel well is going to end. So a tire could conceivably tuck up under there. Okay. Yeah, so this is all going to be cut back. You'll need to fabricate something to fill in this spot here. You can kind of extend it off of the existing wheel well plastic and just add to it out here. And that would be to cover this small amount of this hole here. You'd want to do that because it's going to fill your bumper with dirt. So all right, so that's going to be right there. And concealing that new bracket there for the bumper. Okay, so we'll start with cutting the rear here and fitting this rear portion of the flare. All right, so let's take a look where we are as far as preparing to cut the arches. Okay, so I've sort of refined where I'm cutting I want it to be sort of a clean arc. So it's going along here, following, and then carrying over in a linear fashion into the bumper. Okay, so what I'm clearing out here is some space for the tire to tuck underneath the lip of the flare that's going on top. Okay, so the flare goes here. The cut, as you can see, is up to here. And so I will be cutting also this back along that line. It's a bit hard to see, but I'll be cutting the lip here back, and that'll allow more tire there. Now, as you could see before, I'm going to be cutting off a fastening point on the bumper right here. So now what you need to do to figure out a new bracket and where to fasten that is make sure that you leave this done up, because this is going to align the bumper properly. So leave this fastener in here before you cut anything, and before you cut anything back, you want to make the bracket to support the bumper. Now, because this is fastened here in the stock location, where you put this bracket inevitably is going to keep the bumper in the correct angle to line up with everything. So don't just chop this back and then figure this out later. That's the wrong thing to do. Figure out the bracket first, support the bumper, and then cut it back. So for this, what I had to figure out was a small metal bracket that will support this bumper. And what I did was I put nut certs into the body to facilitate fastening this to the body. Now, what I'm worried about on here, the weight of the bumper pulling down, is the ability for this to shear, which is going to be fine for the nut certs. They're put into sheet metal, and that's not going to be an issue. Now, as far as the fasteners for the bumper here, the combination that I arrived at is a flathead screw of sorts with a fine thread. It's a metric thread. Now the head, it doesn't need a washer or anything because it is going into metal. Okay, so it's going to sit this way. On the other side, what I have is a nut, a lock washer, and then a bigger washer. The bigger washer is to distribute the clamping force on this rubberized material that is the bumper. So you want to distribute that force so that this fastener can't pull through the bumper. So that's how you set up your fastener there for the most support on that body part. Now, further to that, the reason I'm using a flathead fastener, this same fastener is going to be the one that screws into here, is that on the back of the flare, so the flare sits there, there is a flat piece right here that I'm going to have to cut a slight relief into, and that's to accommodate the 4 screw heads that are there. So I don't want to turn it into a situation where the fasteners that I use to attach the bumper to the car with the new bracket are forcing the flare into a weird position. I want that flare to be as if those fasteners aren't there. So I have to cut a relief into that flare so that it can sit flat and it won't, those fasteners won't force it into a strange position. So I will have to reason out where to cut a relief into here, and I'm eventually, once I fasten this up and I trim everything back, I'm going to have to figure out where to trim the flares back, which I'll go over as well. That's my plan right here, is to create a little bit of a lip there, and that's again so that the tire can sink beyond the flare, suspension wise. So all right, so that's where I'm at. All right guys, so a lot of trimming done. So where we're at is we're pretty much ready to put on the flare, the rear half. We haven't done the front half yet, which is on the door. We're still working on the rear half. So what changes have we done here? So got this all attached, and like I said before, we cut this point off after putting this bracket on so that we kept the angle correct on this car. Now this stud you can get to through the trunk. These ones you can't. These are way in there. Behind the gas door, it's really difficult to get to these guys. So this one actually is accommodated on the flare. So if you take the flare, flip it over, I've trimmed the inside out. Right here, this is from FEAST. So this is one of the fastening points that FEAST has put in. The second point I just put in. Okay, and now, so as well, like I had said earlier, we trimmed out a square there, and that's to accommodate this part here, the support, the metal support there for the rear bumper, and that'll allow this flare to sit flat against the quarter panel. So the attachment points now are going to be on this corner right here, and on the lip going right into there. And now across the top you're going to have the black rubber. You could glue in a stud and drill a hole in the bumper to pull it in. I decided that rear flare required one more fastening point, and so what I chose to do was to put a stud into the very bottom corner of the flare, just to pull it into the bumper and make sure that everything is going to be secure. So what I decided to do here is I used a flathead fastener, and because it's 2 layers on the inside, there's just enough room for me to slot it out and slide it in. And then what I'm going to do is epoxy around it with automotive grade adhesive, and that'll be it. I like the fact that there's going to be a mechanical stop there, so that the second piece of fiberglass or SMC or whatever it is, and that way this stud will not pull through. I'm always a little bit resistant to just gluing metal fasteners to fiberglass or SMC without some sort of a mechanical sort of joint there. So you can make a mechanical joint just by slotting it out, sliding the head underneath in between those 2 panels, and then epoxying around it, and then that's no way that's coming out. All right, so I used 3M 2-part epoxy and a adhesion promoter, and epoxied that stud in. And remember, it does have that mechanical stop behind it because it was notched in there. So the epoxy is there really just to hold it from sliding around, and this stud is solely just to pull the bottom of that flare in and give it some more stability. That's all it's for. So, all right, so let that dry. We'll move on to the front flare. Okay, so the front flare on this project is a little bit easier to deal with. You can see that the back flare has quite a bit of messing around to sort of get it to not fit properly, but to attach it to the car in a way where it's removable and serviceable if it gets damaged. As well, you don't, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of necessarily just gluing things to the body, but I guess, I mean, you could do that. I would kind of say that most shops that aren't going to spend this kind of time, unless you want to pay for it, and they're just going to either use auto body adhesive, glue it to the body, or a lot of double-sided tape. I like mechanical fasteners if I can get away with them, so that's why I ended up using nut certs and some bolts, right? So yeah. Now, on the front flare here, it is a little bit easier. So FEAST provided the fastening points, and looking at the door, the easiest way to deal with this, now you can't, without really cutting a whole lot into the door, you can't really use all 5 of these fastening points, but you can use the middle 3. This is a very light product. I think the middle 3 will be sufficient. And keep in mind too, we're going to trim some of this away so that we can have more tire clearance. So I think the 3 center ones is going to be enough. And so I'll put this down for a moment here. So the 3 center fasteners that you can use are this one, this one, this one. So going to the door, so the ones you're going to be able to use for sure are this one, and this one here. Okay, now on top of it, you're going to be able to use that adhesive rubber insulator, which is going to give it some more strength, but 3 fasteners is what we have on the back flare as well. So we have the stud, we have this one here, we have this one here, and we have the insulator. So to me, that's enough. If you want to do more, you certainly can. There's options to do more, but you're going to have a difficult time hiding the fasteners. So the way to do it on here with those 3 center fasteners, you can actually hide it behind the weather strip. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the weather strip. We're going to drill through the body of the door using these holes as guides. And then we're going to clearance those holes on the inside to make sure that we can get a fastener in from the back. And then at that point, put the weather strip back, and it's going to hide those holes that we created. So that's the plan. All right, so the 3 fasteners, no problem. Holds this on without any issues. And that's not even tightened down super tight, but yeah, not going anywhere. So you can see what I did on the inside here. So 3 holes. Basically, these holes are right behind the weather strip. So not only will they be protected from corrosion under the weather strip, they'll be hidden as well, so those holes won't be visible. So it's a nice install. Now I have to trim this inside edge to match the rear flare where I trimmed it. And as far as the weather strip, it sits on these little clips. Don't try and yank these clips out. They're gonna break. I mean, they're 20 plus years old. Just take the weather strip. Okay, so there's the holes for the weather strip, but the weather strip is soft. Just pull it to one side, slip it off the edge of that clip, slip it off the other side, and it'll come off. And yeah, then just pull it aside, tape it to the door. You'll have plenty of room to drill those holes. So what I did was I drilled again from this side, the outside, and punched a hole. Then I took a die grinder, the acorn shaped tip, just to slowly make the holes bigger. And all you're looking to do is to make the hole big enough so that you can get the head of the fastener through there. And what you do is you throw the fastener on a magnet, insert it, throw a screwdriver in behind it, and slowly do those up. That's how you do it without dropping a whole bunch of fasteners into the door. Okay, so the next step is to line this up with the rear, trim the inside to match, and then it's done. All done, guys. So let's get on that. Okay, so just so you guys can see what I'm working with here, this is where we're at. Back is in and it's nice and tight. I added that stud right about here. I would probably recommend that. You can do double-sided tape, but the stud really pulls it in and gives some real nice stability to the piece. So, and I spaced it out about a millimeter there, maybe 2 mil, to accommodate that strip, the insulator strip. Now on the front one, what you would have to do, because keep in mind the front is attached just with 3 bolts through the door, so I'd recommend putting a 1 mil washer on the other side of the bolt, and that will space it out just a tiny bit to accommodate that insulator strip here. Okay, so you look underneath where we're at. Okay, we got the stud right here, holding this on, and up there we can see the fasteners for the metal bracket on the bumper. And so some of this will get taken in by the plastic wheel well, the stock one, but keep in mind it's moving at 20 mil out, so you're gonna have to add to that that plastic inner wheel well, and that's very simple to do. You can just rivet a little extension onto it, just to fill up this void here so that you don't fill your rear bumper with, you know, road debris and gravel and junk. So the last thing that I need to do is I need to trim this arch to match the one up here. And then what I'm going to do is go over the metal edges that I cut with some epoxy just to seal it up, and then we're done. So let's trim out this front arch. Okay, so that's the install, all done. Looks fabulous. Let's check out how much room there is. All right. So the old cutoff would have been here for sure. This is another, at the peak here, it's about 2.5 centimeters to the lip. And yeah, So even if we would have left that lip, we would have had, according to Feast, plus 20. So because we took it off, we would have plus 30, plus 35, thereabouts. So that's going to be a ton of space. So this car is going to be going back to its owner, and hopefully when I see what kind of wheel and tire package he has, I'll be able to maybe make a follow-up video for that. But this should be able to fit a really big wheel and tire package. Like I said earlier in the video, Feast says 255. I wouldn't be surprised if you could go 265, 275, somewhere in there. So success. All right, guys, so the flares are fitted up. They are done. There's a lot of work involved in putting these on the car. So as a review portion of this video, I would say this is going to be more of an advanced install. You have to be comfortable with some doing some body work, and you have to be patient. The flares need to be fit up on the car probably at least 5 to 10 times per side to get those the fasteners aligned properly. You're gonna have to be comfortable using nutserts. You're gonna have to be comfortable. Well, for me, I ended up putting actually epoxying an extra stud onto the back of the flares. And you're gonna have to be comfortable with cutting something that you just paid a whole lot of money for. So if you look at the amount of cutting that has to be done, all this, okay? And so basically you need to be willing to cut something you just purchased. The flares fit really well. They are a very accurate fit. There's not a whole lot of gaps. Yeah, hats off to Feast. They made a quality product. But if you want to maximize how much room you have in that wheel well, you do need to cut. If you don't, that's okay. Feast references a 255 size tire if you don't cut. I haven't gotten to the point of putting a wheel and tire onto a car, but I would guess it's going to be way more than 255 for room if you're willing to cut. And all you're doing is maximizing what's there. So as a review, you're going to have to be comfortable cutting the wheel well out on the body, rear bumper, you know, putting in a bracket, and drilling into the doors. So this is more of a permanent install. You know, this isn't something where you put these on and then you don't like them in 3 weeks and you take them off. That's probably not happening. So yeah, so be aware of that. This is a bit of a commitment, but the look and the 20 to more like 30 or 35 millimeters you get extra if you're willing to cut into them, that's worth it. That's a huge jump in tire and wheel size, and in addition, again, the quality of the product is very nice, so you're not going to be disappointed. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video on the Feast Power rear flare install. Now, if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and make sure you hit that bell so that you're aware when I put up a video. And please come visit me on Instagram @WrenchRampage. Have a good night.